Podcast 411, Item 224. Today's guest is Danny from the Gamertag Radio Podcast.
Podcast411.com. Listen different.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the Podcast 411 Podcast. On today's episode, we have an interview with the longtime podcaster, Danny from the Gamertag Radio Podcast. And then after the interview, I get into some podcasting news, going over podcasting stats for May, how to submit your podcast to TuneIn Radio, and how one troll is trying to kill podcasting and what you can do to help. Not help him kill podcasting, how you can help him not kill podcasting. As always, your feedback is greatly appreciated. Give us a call, 206-666-4357. That's 206-MOM-HELP. Or send an email to podcast411@gmail.com. And now, the interview with Danny from Gamertag Radio. Here we go. Danny, welcome to the show.
Hello, Rob. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, I'll start you off. First question, which is always, what was your first computer?
My first computer was, that's a good question. I don't remember what was my first computer. I think it was an old, was it a compact computer? I think it was that, but I don't remember what. It was so long ago.
Probably not a very good gaming machine, I would guess.
No, at all. And I've never been a PC gamer. I've always been all about consoles. My first one, I believe my grandmother gave it to me for Christmas, Atari 2600. That was my first video game console.
I still have my Atari 2600. Still here. It still works.
What's your favorite game on that?
This Pac-Man was one of them, but I think Asteroids was the one I was probably the best at. I actually had a higher score than what was considered the all-time high score at the time. I remember thinking, this guy's got the world record. My score's better than that.
Yeah, you know what? My favorite game from Atari 2600 was Defender. That was pretty cool. I loved that whole shooting and helping out people and stuff. So that was awesome. I had a great time. And then Activision took them to the next level. And some of the Activision games look much better. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but it was a great time. I always say to people, when they ask me about why I started gaming, it was all because of my grandmother. She bought all my cousins Atari 2600, and from there I slowly upgraded to Nintendo and Super Nintendo. But it all started because of her. So that was a great time, man. Yeah, I mean, I got into computers too from the Atari 2600. Led me, and I actually had the cartridge there was a computer cartridge and these keyboards for the Atari 2600. You could turn the 2600 into a computer, and it had some ridiculous amount of memory. It was 400 bytes. It wasn't even a 1K. It was less than 1K of what you could actually program in. It was so worthless. But I bet at that time it was oh my God, it's amazing. No, even then it was oh my God, this is so bad. I need a real computer. Awesome, man. No, but it's cool. I love gaming, man. I always, been playing since the 80s, since I was a kid. So, and still to this day. And now, with this whole podcasting thing, now I've been, expressing my opinion about gaming to the world, which has been kind of fun. So for 8 years now. And next week is your big week. We're recording this the beginning of June. So next week's E3. That's your big week of the year, isn't it? Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's where, for those that don't know about E3, it's where gaming companies are showing their products that's been coming out either this holiday season or sometime next year. But the thing that I like about E3 of this year is because Sony and Microsoft, they're showing their new console now, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And we're not going to see something like this within maybe 10 years. So by 2023, we might see, the next consoles coming out after that. But this E3 is going to be a very, very special. Third-party companies are showing their games that's coming out for the new systems and stuff. So I'm very, very excited. I love tech, so... I was listening to one of your recent shows. It didn't sound like everyone was overly enthralled, I guess, or thrilled with how Xbox released the Xbox One or the initial part of it. It sounds like they didn't say everything the Xbox One can do. Nah, that's the thing. I think that they were just concentrating more on the the features for the mainstream, those that are not hardcore gamers, most for like the casual that are into like Netflix and TV and stuff like that. But right after that press conference, that's when everybody was like, complaining like, wait a minute, but I've been hearing rumors that you have to be online in order for you to play some certain games, and it's just crazy rumors. But I believe yesterday Microsoft already announced like all their plans where their next console. But I think they're letting everything out of the way. And then once their press conference happens next week, that's when they're gonna be talking more about their games, which that's when I care more about. People just gotta relax. It's not like the end of the world, but you know how the internet is. They're always gonna be complaining about everything. So, but I think once the consoles, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox releases this November, people are gonna be happy and fine. So it just I think it's a lot. The change is just kind of weird coming from a console, but that's been going on with PC, especially with I don't know if you heard of Steam. Mm-hmm. You have to be online a certain amount of days in order to play your games and stuff. So that's what they're doing, the same thing for consoles. So I don't have any issues with it,
But it sounded like what Xbox you had to be on every day. Yeah,
daily, 24 hours. Yeah. Wow. I think it's a little bit extreme. I think it would have been better like a week.
What happens if you go away for a vacation? You want to shut everything down?
That's it. You can't play. They could easily make some changes in the future. If people still complain about that, they can make it happen. But the thing is, Sony, in my opinion, I think they're probably gonna be doing the same thing with their PlayStation 4. And the reason is that third-party publishers are very basically pressuring both companies to do that. So they don't want to lose money because of used games. So that's why they're doing this new way of playing games now, that you have to be online and stuff. So in order to play those games. For
listeners listening, by now they kind of figured out you have a video game podcast, which we didn't do the proper introduction with. Did you want to tell listeners a little bit the name of your podcast and what it's about?
Yeah, my podcast is called Gamertag Radio. It's all about video games and hip hop. What I like to do is play some indie music from like upcoming artists and stuff. And at the same time, we focus a lot about gaming. We be like traveling or interviewing people that are involved in the gaming industry. And we've been doing it now since like February of 2005. Because of podcasting, a lot of opportunities been coming up for our website. So it's been great, man. Coming from like an indie podcast, it's a great show, man. So
congratulations on keeping it going that long. That is definitely an achievement.
And it's tough. And I always tell people like, look, you don't have to be on top of iTunes, or we never been featured on iTunes. Never, I think, since we started. But because of our show, we worked with video game companies, like doing community launch parties and stuff, where if they have like a new game coming out, we get like all our listeners involved, because we want them to check out their games too. If it's something that we really like, I'm not gonna just pick any random company and say, yeah, I'll promote your show or promote your stuff, whatever.
Yeah, how do you deal with that? That's a good question, because I get this too, because I do an iPhone one, and people give me stuff to review all the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the stuff is crap.
It is crap. Yeah.
How do you deal with that? What do you do?
I have to give a shout out to a good friend of mine. He also used to write for a huge video game magazine called Electronic Gaming Monthly. His name is Dan Shu. And I asked him because we once got sponsored by EA Games to go to E3. And I was very afraid of like, not telling our listeners. I really wanted to tell them, but I just wanted to find out a way how to do that. And he was like, look, what you guys have to do is just be yourself and let your listeners know, look, we're getting sponsored. This was going on. As long as you just be truthful to your listeners, I think it'll be fine, man. I think that hiding something and making it obvious that you guys are giving it a great review is a bad way, I think, to get a sponsorship and stuff. But the majority of sponsors that we've been getting has always been like companies that has nothing to do with gaming. But if gaming stuff pops up, then we'll let our listeners know from the get-go.
Yeah, and sponsorship is one thing, but there's a lot of times I'll get, stuff will just show up in the mail and it's like, okay, this product. And I'm like, sometimes I'll ask for it and it comes and it's just like, wow, this is really bad. And the person's like, well, when are you going to do that review? I'm like, well, you really don't want me to do this review. Trust me, you really don't. No. When are you going to do the review? It's not going to be nice.
Yeah, like us, we get tons of stuff. Like I have like 4 Xbox 360s. One of them, I believe, during their they celebrated their 10th anniversary of Xbox Live. So what they did was Xbox sent me this rare console that honestly not that many people have. I think like maybe between 50 to 100 consoles around the world. And I have it boxed up. I showed it to our fans. I talked about it, It's just being real about that, instead of hiding it, I'd rather just tell the listeners of what's going on behind the scenes,
Yeah, see, my problem is I follow Apple, and Apple doesn't give away free stuff to any other people. Yeah.
They should do that. They
don't. They don't give anybody anything. It's like, unless your name's Walt Mossberg or David Pogue, you ain't getting nothing.
No, but they should do that, man. I think it's important for companies to talk to their consumers and get those influential bloggers or podcasters that there are fans of their products. And I think it's very important for that, because honestly, like when we say something that we don't like about Microsoft or any video game company, listeners, they take notice and they trust us, because we always been honest with them. But I think Apple should do that instead of just like concentrating just on a big mainstream media and stuff. So
yeah, well, unfortunately, I picked a niche to follow where it's the one company that doesn't actually reach out to their fans.
Yeah, but as long you have a big community though that follows you, so to me that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I love my community. I love the listeners of TII. I could not be happier. Just like with Podcast 411, I love that community too. So I'm happy actually to be back doing this podcast again. I missed it.
Yeah, one thing I haven't mentioned is that a couple of years. Well, actually, for 3 years we used to do an annual anniversary party here in Miami, Florida, and we had one where we invited our listeners to attend. We had a couple of indie bands performing, and we did one during I believe the Super Bowl that was happening here in Miami during that weekend, and we did our party. I believe we had like over 1,000 people that attended. And because of that and our podcast, the Miami New Times posted us as the #1 Super Bowl party in South Florida.
That's
because
sweet.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like what we did was, all the other parties they were charging $500 just to attend. For us, what we did was like, look, this is free. We're gonna give out a bunch of free games and consoles, that company sent us. Just attend. We're gonna have tournaments. We're gonna have performances, and we had a blast. It was like an all-day event. And look, because of podcasting, it's just our name just got out there, and a lot of people supported us because of that. So,
all right, so E3's coming up. Obviously, you're not going to get much sleep the next week. I'm taking it's a Red Bull, or is it 5-hour energy drink, which is your
honestly, I don't drink that. I most likely will be drinking a lot of coffee.
Oh wow, old school.
Old school, yeah. I like that. Well, over here in Miami, we have this drink that Cuban coffee that's very, very strong. So I'll probably be. They don't have that in LA, but I'll be drinking, soda and coffee and stuff. So that probably will help me be awake.
Now, how many of your team is going to be there at E3?
Right now, we're going to have 5 in total. They're going to be attending E3. So I believe only one. This is like his first time, and everybody else been to E3. I've been attending E3 since like 2005. Other
than the big Xbox One and the PlayStation announcement, what else are you looking forward to at E3?
Honestly, everybody's talking about like Microsoft and Sony, but I'm really curious to see what Nintendo are planning to do, because they released their new console last year called the Wii U, and it hasn't been selling as like compared to like their last Wii console, because everybody was buying that. Everybody got excited about that console, but I'm really want to know like what are they planning to do, because 2 brand new consoles is coming out. They're going to have a lot of games, Sony and Microsoft. What about Nintendo? What are they going to do? Most likely they're probably going to announce a price drop, and they're just going to show a lot of games. What they're doing is this year too, they're not going to have no press conference. they're doing this new thing called Nintendo Direct. What they do is they show a live video on Ustream, and later they post it on YouTube. It's like a pre-recorded video where they make announcements. It's more for like the hardcore fans, you know. They also are planning to have game demos of certain games that are going to be available at E3, but it's also going to be at Best Buy around the nation. So I think that's very cool that they're, instead of just concentrating, with the media, they're going to be, also talking to the consumer and the hardcore gamers that they want to try out their games and stuff. So I think that's pretty unique and cool. Sony and Microsoft are not doing that at all. They're hyping everybody up on Twitter and blogs and E3 videos, and that's it.
Now, is there a specific game that's being released or having an announcement that you are looking forward to?
Oh, man, honestly, I like the surprises. There's a lot of surprises, but there's one game that I'm very, very curious to see. It's called Destiny. It's from the creators of Halo, Bungie. They have a 10-year contract deal with Activision, and they're doing a first-person shooter, but MMO kind of. They haven't really been releasing much details about the game, but they say that people are saying that this might change online gaming forever. So we'll see. I mean, they did that with their past games, Halo. So it could happen with this one. I think this is going to be a huge game, and Activision are putting a lot of money for this. That's one game that I definitely want to check out. And there's another one too. My friends at Harmonix, they just announced a game that they're working on with Disney. It's called Fantasia. This one's going to be using the camera of Xbox 360 and Xbox One called Kinect. I don't know how this is going to be played. I think you've seen the movie Fantasia, right? With Mickey Mouse?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's similar to that, but it's actually you controlling with your hands with the camera, and they're going to have a lot of music there too. So we're going to be checking that out and play it over there at E3. That's something I'm really curious how they're going to do. Like, I love music games. I like that a lot.
Now, you release a lot of content at E3. Do audio, video, mixture there. One of the things you have is smartphone app with us. But how do your listeners, what is your listeners' feedback? What do you get from them? How are they getting your content? What do you hear from them?
People, they love it. They feel, my focus is like when I record stuff at E3, I want them to feel like they're there. So we'll have our daily roundtables. But what I also do is when I go to like a meeting, an appointment, if the company give us permission to record, we just record the whole thing. Some people are into that whole Q&A stuff. Some people are not. But I just want people to feel that they're there. For those that have our Gamertag Radio app, which is free, by the way, you could get it on Android and iOS devices. When I want them also, when they're not like on the computer, they could check on their mobile phone and download not only our content that is everywhere, but also bonus content just for them. Like a little behind the scenes video or audio that's not released on our website. Make something different and special for them. Just last week, when was it? A couple of days ago, there's this a friend of mine that she used to work for Microsoft for Xbox and Xbox Live. She have this novel. It's like a mystery novel, but it was also about gaming. She what she did was she sent us their first chapter of her book that has not been available nowhere. And what we did, we released it for our mobile users so they could get it before anybody else. And also we added an audio of her describing what the book is about and stuff. So it's something unique and different, It's cool. Yeah,
I like how you interact with your audience with your app. So that's why I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I'm telling you, people, mobile phone is the future.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, that's where people consume. They consume where they are, and where they are is where their smartphone is.
And it's true because I believe like the past 2 years I've been noticing like the change that now we're getting more hits on mobile phone devices than iTunes and PC, so it's crazy how things are changing. And I always tell this to podcasters, keep up to date on what's going on with technology, especially, stuff like with mobile phones and stuff, or programs that it might be big in the future. Try everything, because you never know. It might be a big thing.
Yeah, people just don't want to sit down at a computer or, they don't want to be tethered to listen to a podcast. They want to be able to do it as they move about.
Yep, exactly.
Now, you're doing these mobile recordings. What's your setup? What are you doing when you're at E3? How do you do your recordings?
I have this portable recorder that it's really good. I connect my XLR mics there. I believe I could connect 2 mics in there. So when I'm out there, I record one-on-one interviews like that, or if anything, I use my built-in mic from my portable recorder for like Q&A sessions, so I could get everybody's audio and stuff. I use that. Sometimes I use my phone for like videos. I still use my flip camera. It still works. I use that. And yeah, that's what we do, man. Once we finish with throughout the day, sometimes we attend parties, media parties and stuff like that, where companies show their games and we'll record over there too. And once we finish with that, then we'll go to the hotel and record. I bring my mixer and connect our 4 mics, and we just do like a daily roundtable on stuff that happened throughout the day and stuff. So the funny thing is, like, sometimes there's no Wi-Fi, there's no internet access, so I have to create a hotspot from my phone for me to edit and start uploading content from my computer, so my laptop. So I do that too. It's a little hard sometimes, but as long our readers and listeners are getting our content, it'll be fine.
You mentioned the portable recorder, XLR. What recorder is it?
I believe it's called Tascam. That, and I'm also M Audio. Those are pretty good too. I use those. And it's cheap. I believe it's like $85, $100. You could get those at Guitar Center. They have some pretty good mics over there too. So it's like, I'm not really like, I notice a lot of podcasts are very tech heavy when it comes to like mics and mixers. I just find something that's decent for me to buy. You know, I can't go crazy with money, you know, but as long the sound quality sounds good, because I'm very picky with audio. As long as the sound sounds pretty good, I'm good with that. I use Final Cut Pro or GarageBand. It all depends on my mood, you know. So,
what do you do to promote on the promotion side? How are you promoting the show? You said you mentioned you've never been featured in iTunes, but you've grown a pretty good size audience. So, how did you do it? I mean, other than perseverance over 8 years.
Yeah, I tell people this, man. You know, it's all about search engines and social media. You know, I talk more on Twitter now. You know, I post stuff on like Instagram, Facebook, or other places and stuff. But honestly, I always tell people this, man. Search engines, Google and other ones, people randomly will look up Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, and it will pop up. You know, depending what type of content they were looking for. So, still, people are downloading our like shows from like 4 years ago. They're really into that stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we use most of the time. But I definitely blog a lot, like when it comes to like reviews or interviews and stuff like that. But I definitely post every week a new show. Every week, Mondays. There's always something, or Tuesday sometimes. So if there's something really big that we get like an exclusive or something that no other gaming podcast has, then I might release it early just to get it out there.
Yeah, consistency and when you release is a really big thing. I wish I was more consistent.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it's hard when you have a 9-to-5 job, when you have a family. It's pretty tough. But the thing I like about this is that sometimes I'm not in the mood to record. I'm like exhausted, or I'm in a bad mood. But my staff, we're like, look, no matter what, we record on Thursday nights. Let's make it happen, and we do it. And sometimes I'm like in a bad mood, and they make me laugh, and I'm ready to record. We've been doing it like that for 8 years. Not easy to do, let me tell you.
Tell a little bit about staff. Who are some of the people that are on your show, and how long have they been with you?
Well, it's Peter, P-Rock, Lady Luck. By the way, these are all nicknames. I don't really mention their real names.
No, that's fine.
All right, so it's Lady Luck, Paustin J, Paris Lily, Jonathan, David Tusley, Miss Irie, and also Banjo. Yeah, I think that's it. but yeah, everybody, the majority, they've been there since from when we started.
Did you know all of them before you started the podcast? Are they friends, local?
It's funny. We all met because of online gaming. We met because of Xbox Live. At first, we never met. They just joined the staff. And then eventually, once we got invited to like press conferences and events, we finally got to meet and talk. But we always been friends since like 2005 or like a couple years later after that. But yeah, that's kind of weird, right?
Okay, so here, I'll put your friendship to test. Which one's the best gamer?
The best gamer, it depends. If they are into first-person shooters, I will say maybe Pete Rock. If it's someone that are into like fighting games, I'll put Posting J. Or if it's anything like with racing, I'll put David Susly, Lady Luck. And we have one that's really, really into The Sims. She's like addicted to that game still. So I'm not really into that at all. But Miss Irie, she's really into that stuff. We have a mix of everything. You know, some are into those stuff or RPG, MMO, mobile games. So we have a mix of everything. That's one thing I love about our staff, that when we record a show, everybody has a different opinion. It's not like everybody likes the same thing. You know, sometimes I like some stuff. The other co-hosts hate it, and they'll say why. You know, so that I think that's what makes our show so special and exciting. You know.
So you mentioned you get some sponsorships and generate some revenue. How do you go about getting your sponsorships and generating the revenue for the show?
Definitely, we have our the old way, with ads on our website or ads through YouTube. But what we like to do also is if we have like an event coming up that we would like to do with our listeners, we'll contact the gaming companies and they sponsor from there. We're very picky on who we're gonna say yes or not. That's to me is a great way for us to get money. And at first too, we were selling our app, but I feel like I want our listeners to increase. I think to me, mobile phone is going to get even bigger in the future. So why not have something free, get new listeners, and the numbers are going to increase and show that to companies. I think that is going to help us to get more income and build the website even better. But I always tell this to people too, like especially podcasters that are up and coming. One of the things I always tell them is like, look, concentrate on the local scene first. Once you have a good amount of people that listen to you locally, then step it up and start attending events that you like like part of your industry. And you're going to get to meet other people from other companies and other podcasts and bloggers, within the community, and network with people. I think that's going to get your name out there. So that's what we did from the get. I've been, before podcasting, I had an internet radio show back in 2001. And what I did was, do you remember mp3.com, Rob?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. At that time, what they did was they used to pay music artists for every stream and download. So what I did was, there was this game that I was really into. It's called Phantasy Star Online for the Sega Dreamcast that got released back in the US here in 2001. It's like a MMO kind of game. You get together with other people and play online. So I was like, man, let me do a radio show about this game, upload it on mp3.com, and let's see what happens. And because of that, I got my first paycheck, $500, I remember. And I got so excited. I'm like, wow, I could build a business out of this. Why not? And look, now with podcasting, it's a lot easier to release your content, everywhere. And I forgot to mention too, Rob, that because of our show, I had an opportunity to create a video game show for Discovery Channel, Latin America. I did that for, I believe, a year, and they loved it. It was kind of like the same thing, but a little bit shorter than what we do on our radio show, but it's more like, doing previews and interviews with video game companies. And all this happened because of podcasting. If I could do it, I think anybody else could do the same thing too, and even better.
Well, congratulations on it. I remember you getting that, and that was really cool. I love hearing where podcasters move from being a podcaster into more what you call mainstream, whatever you want to call it, more mainstream media.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, that's my 9-to-5 job at Discovery. I work there, but the thing I like about this is that what I always do is I tell people, look, I have a radio show. I tell everybody. And because of that, a coworker of mine gave me an opportunity to create my own show, and we did it. I get emails from like people from like Venezuela or Brazil, Mexico that has seen the show online and they love it, and it's crazy how easy your content could go out there around the world,
Yeah, and
awesome.
It's getting easier again. One other thing you mentioned earlier, you have the iOS and the Android app, but you also shortly will be having a Windows Phone 8 and a Windows 8 app that are coming out.
Finally. Oh my God. I've been waiting for this for so long. because we have a lot of listeners that have been asking, hey, Danny, what's up with Windows Phone? Are you guys gonna give us some love too? Because you guys are releasing so much content, bonus content for Android and iOS is now finally we're gonna have for Windows 8 and Windows Phone. I think that's pretty cool.
And I'm sure when you tell the guys at Microsoft when you meet with them next week, you got the app coming for their platforms, they're going to be happy too.
Oh, definitely, they're gonna be smiling. They're like, oh my God, thank God. And you know what? I'll mention it to a couple of friends. Maybe they will promote it on Twitter and stuff. So that's awesome. The more the better, in my opinion.
I really think that's the way. Again, having your content where people are and the devices on them and having them easily for them to get to it, it's so important. We see it now at Libsyn. Over 50% of the downloads are directly to the smartphones.
And you know what? I want to say this. I'm very picky on who to work with, but I have to say this. Like Libsyn gave us so many opportunities. Getting a sponsorship also, and getting our show out there to the masses. And I gotta give thanks to Libsyn. If it wasn't for them, I think I would have been struggling right now, because it's not easy. Hosting so many content on our personal website because of bandwidth, but having them, giving us opportunity to host our content on their server, it's been great. No issues so far. So I'm a huge fan of Libsyn.
Well, from the Libsyn hat, thank you for hosting with them. And it's for those that hopefully everyone that listens to the show knows that's my day job is Libsyn. So
yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, Danny, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you got to get ready to get out the door here shortly to go to California, and good luck.
No sleep.
Good luck.
Sleep. No sleep over there, man. We'll see what's going to happen. I'm excited, man. I think, for those that are into gaming, this is going to be a very special E3, man. We're not going to see something like this within maybe 10 years. So it doesn't matter who wins. At the end of the day, it's going to help us gamers, have more options, and competition is good. So the more competition, the better content we're going to get for gamers. So it's going to be awesome.
Enjoy the show, and folks, search for Gamertag Radio in the iTunes App Store, or search for it over in the Android App Store, and you'll be able to find the app, or obviously you can just search in iTunes for Gamertag Radio.
Definitely. Rob, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for everything.
All right, Danny, thanks. Thanks again to Danny for coming on the show. In the interview, we talked about his Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 apps coming out. Well, good news. The Gamertag Radio Windows 8 app is now live in the Windows 8 App Store. There is a link to this in the show notes for episode 224 over at podcast411.com. If you are interested in seeing what the Windows 8 app from Libsyn looks like, go to that link and download the app. You will, of course, need Windows 8. Check it out. The Windows Phone 8 apps will be coming out soon as well. The Windows 8 app for Podcast 411 at the time of this episode going live was not yet approved, but I expect it to be up and live before the next episode, which will come out sometime in July. Again, I can't stress enough, as a podcaster, you need to have your own apps for your show. At Libsyn, you can now get your own free to-the-end-user apps standalone for iOS, Android, Windows 8, and Windows Phone 8 platforms. That means your show can be discovered by people looking for your niche of content in the iTunes App Store, the Google Play Store, the Amazon App Store, Windows Phone 8 App Store, and the Windows 8 App Stores. I know some people tell you to get your show out everywhere, and I suggest that too. Well, guess what? App stores are everywhere. And you are much, much more likely to have someone stumble upon your show when it is a free app in one of the app stores than, say, on a set-top box. Just saying. Actually, I have some numbers from Libsyn for May on where downloads were coming from. Direct downloads to mobile devices, that is iOS devices, Android, Windows Phone 8, BlackBerry, and the like. There was a new high of 53.45% of all downloads directly to mobile devices. Compare that to April 2012, where the number was just 43.05%. And you can see where the future and really the present of podcasting is mobile. FYI, last month, 46.49% of the downloads were to computers, and that means once again holding steady at 0.06 0.06%, as in 0.06%, was to set-top boxes. I strongly believe people do not want to and definitely don't consume podcasts on their TVs, not regular people, not on a regular basis. Rather, they are listening on their smartphone or tablets while watching, say, Netflix on their TVs. Okay, back to stats. On the computer side, 50.11% of all downloads to computers were to iTunes. And interestingly, if you look at all the downloads in May, 65.57% were initiated by Apple software, be it iTunes, Safari, Apple Core Media, QuickTime, Apple TV, so on. Regardless of the platform, mobile or computer, Windows or Mac, overall, Apple software was responsible for 65.57% of all the downloads across Libsyn. Aggregator apps on mobile devices represented 7% of all mobile downloads, and individual podcast apps that from producers that had made for their own shows, like the ones I tell you to get, they represented 7.5% of downloads to mobile devices. Again, just more data pointing to the importance of having your own app in the App Store. People are doing it, and if you don't have your app in there, you're falling behind, making it harder for your listeners to consume your content. By the way, for mobile downloads, iOS versus Android, because we always want to do an iOS versus Android thing, there was a 4.84 to 1 ratio of iOS devices versus Android devices. Once again, iOS proves to be a more friendly platform for two podcasters, thanks no doubt to Apple's promotion of podcasting and Google's general apathy towards podcasting. I'd like to say things are changing on the Android side, but the ratio for May was actually higher than both March or April, so actually things are going more towards iOS lately. Granted, in April 2012, it was a 10 to 1 ratio, so it is better longer term on getting more Android consumers. Okay, Apple fanboys, go tell your Android fanboy friends you are still kicking their butt. Android fanboys, well, go tell other Android users there is this thing called podcasting, and it's pretty cool. Love and hate mail can be sent to podcast411@gmail.com. Or for real effect, call us at 206-666-4357. That's 206-MOM-HELP. Or if you have the Podcast 411 app, just tap the Contact tab and then tap Call the Show or Email the Show buttons. It's that easy to get a hold of us. One question I get a lot at Libsyn is people asking how they can make sure their podcast is in the different podcasting aggregator apps that are out there. Well, most of the podcast aggregator apps pull their directory from the public API from Apple for the iTunes podcast store. So if your show is in iTunes, in the podcast section, it is already in apps like Shifty Jelly's Pocket Casts or RSS radio app, but some are not that way, like Stitcher, which you have to submit to manually, which I hope you all have. As you know, Stitcher is kind of a big deal. And another one that is a big deal is TuneIn Radio. I contacted them about how podcasters should submit to them, and they said the following, quote, "Hi, Rob. Thank you for emailing us regarding this issue. Currently, we are manually adding podcasts to the directory. You can add a podcast by emailing broadcaster-support@tunein.com with the following information. 1, title. 2, location. 3, logo. Make it 600 by 600 and less than 5 megabits and PNG or JPEG. 4, your RSS feed. 5, your website URL. 6, the 5, not the feed URL, but your website URL. 6, the genre. 7, your email address. 8, your Twitter handle, and that's optional. Again, that email was broadcaster-support@tunein.com. And the dash is also minus sign, so broadcaster -support@tunein.com. FYI, if you have not submitted to Microsoft Zune directory, it is highly recommended that you do so by sending your RSS feed to podcasts@microsoft.com. That is a slightly easier one to remember than the broadcaster-support@tunein.com. But definitely send emails to both, and when you send it to Microsoft, Rob Greenlee will get you going and add it into that directory. Rob is definitely very helpful and friendly to the podcasters. As I mentioned, one other place you need to be is Stitcher, and for those already in Stitcher, some good news or soon-to-be good news. Stitcher just let us know they will be changing a little bit. They will now ping your media file from the Stitcher app each time someone starts listening to your episode. They are still going to pull one copy of your file and transcode it to meet Apple specs and deliver from their servers. But sometime in July, when they update their app, they will start pinging your files each time someone listens to your episode. This would mean if you have the advanced stats in Libsyn for your account that is set up, if you have an app 400 or greater account, when you check your user agent data, which is only available to those with advanced stats, when you check your user agent data, you will start seeing more than just one download from Stitcher per episode. The only reason they are doing this is so you can see your Stitcher stats along with your podcast stats wherever you host your show. Once this change goes into effect, they will have more info, and you should also keep checking the Libsyn blog.libsyn.com for more info on this. As well as we get more info, we'll put up a blog post. If you see a jump in your stats come July, well, you know now one likely reason. For my Today in iOS podcast, Stitcher plays typically add another 10% or more to each episode's numbers. It will be nice to see them in my Libsyn stats now, so I can use those for advertisers as well. Info on how to submit to Stitcher and BlackBerry and Microsoft can always be found in the Directory of Directories page at podcast411.com, the most comprehensive list of podcast directories to submit your podcast to for over 8.5 years now going. Switching gears and formats, for those of you doing M4A podcasts that are enhanced podcasts where you have changing images, it seems that in the latest version of iTunes, the images no longer change in the MIDI player. Now users need to command-click on the small image in iTunes to bring up the full-size player if they want to see your images change with each chapter. Kind of a big pain in the butt for your users. If you remember, there used to be a player showing in the lower left side of iTunes. Yeah, that was removed with the last major update. Never hurts to help, guys. Since the last major update, to see the images change in enhanced podcasts, you just clicked on the small image of the episode at the top to open the mini player. Again, that no longer changes the images for enhanced podcasts. And your users must now command click on the image at the top to open the bigger player, not the mini player. Yeah, thanks, Apple. Hopefully this is a bug and this feature will be brought back in the future. Finally, a very serious issue to talk about for podcasting, and that is patent trolls, and specifically the patent troll that is going after podcasters. Make no mistake, if you're a podcaster, this troll wants your money. This is a troll that, by his own admission, did nothing to help podcasting, has contributed not a single line of code or idea used by podcasters. He did zip, nada, nothing to help this community. But he wants your pint of blood and your pound of flesh just the same. And he has a patent issued by the U.S. government to extort you with. The troll has sued some podcasters already and sent shakedown letters to many others. But now some good news. The EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, has said enough is enough and has announced that they will fight the patent issued to this patent troll with regards to podcasting. The EFF late last month posted a call to action where they stated they needed two things. First was some money. They hoped to raise $30,000 in about 2 weeks. They actually raised over $30,000 in the first 10 hours. I donated $100 myself, and I hope some of you donate some money as well. To date, they have raised over $70,000 from over 1,200 contributors. Kudos to all that donated. If you would still like to contribute, you can. Look for the link titled Help Save Podcasting in the show notes for episode 224 at podcast411.com. The second item the EFF is asking for is prior art. Specifically, they are looking for any examples of people producing serialized audio content available on the internet prior to October 2nd, 1996. There are already some great examples people have contributed, but if you yourself were producing audio content or were consuming audio content via the internet prior to October 2nd, 1996, please make sure to give all the info and links you can on this prior art. Please don't assume someone else added in the prior art you know about. If you know of something, please share it. Clearly, This patent should never have been issued, but it has, and now the EFF needs as much info on prior art as possible. They'll then take that prior art and go to the USPTO and show them why this patent has to go. Please don't think this patent troll is only going after big names and corporations. He is going after anyone that has a podcast and has already gone after some shows many, if not most of you have never heard of. Small shows, just like the majority of podcasts. This troll must be stopped, and the EFF is our best hope in stopping it. I really don't even want to call him a him. It is a much better description. So again, please help out. Look for the link in the show notes for episode 224 at podcast411.com titled Help Save Podcasting. Also check out some of the other links in the show notes that have links to articles about this topic, including some brazen interviews with the troll itself. More about this story, I am sure, in the near future. And that, folks, is going to do it for us on this episode. I plan to be back again in July with another interview and news on podcasting. In the meantime, your feedback, comments, questions are always welcome. Give us a call, 206-666-4357. That's 206-MOM-HELP. Or you can record an email feedback and send that to podcast411@gmail.com. Until the next time, I'm your host, Rob, from Podcast 411, reminding you to listen different. This podcast is proudly hosted on Libsyn.com. If you'd like to learn more about podcast hosting, go to Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com, as in Liberated Syndication. Find out more about podcast hosting, podcast monetization, podcast promotion through smartphone apps, as in iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and Windows Phone 8 as well, plus many other features including unpublished to Facebook, Blogger, WordPress, and Twitter. Go to Libsyn.com.